Okay, so my video recording software not working very well. It's not reading my mic. I think I'm using the Logitech camera right now. It's not what I really want to use. That's fine. So I wanted to create a video today to start a new playlist, and it's going to be for beginners DMing. Now I know I'm new to DMing. That is, you know, pretty much a given. But for beginners DMing, I wanted to make a playlist because I wanted it to sort of run parallel with my experiences as DMing, as a DM. And yeah, that's something that I feel like as it runs parallel with what I do and what I learn, um, I can sort of impart that advice after I take a bit to deconstruct what I did. This playlist will be coming very slowly because it'll be essentially a couple videos after every session, or maybe once every 2 sessions, or something like that. But the video can vary very infrequently. Not infrequently, just maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once a week. I don't know. So let's get into this. Beginners DMing. The first thing that a DM needs to understand is um, it's not about you. It's about the party. Party composition doesn't matter, and never stop preparing. So let's start the first one. It's not about you. I feel like a problem that a lot of people complain about online or when they interact with other DMs is, oh, I had like this DM and it was fine up until a certain point, and then we were trying to figure out a way to solve this puzzle, or he put up against an enemy that was way too strong. When we figured out a way around it, he punished us. And usually something like that comes around when a DM can't handle being a DM because you set up challenges and the players get past them. So your mentality is it's me versus them. That's a very unhealthy mentality to have for a dungeon master because your job isn't to kill the party, it's to facilitate the narrative. It's to build this world around them so the way they can experience something that you've created. Now, how do you sort of fix this issue? How do you go about not doing that? Very simply put, you play sessions as a player and you play sessions as a DM. Now, it sounds simpler than it actually is because you have to find the time to do both things. And being a DM already by itself takes a lot of time. But if you do that, it takes away from the player burnout or the DM burnout. Like, oh, I play too often, I'm not up for this. Or I DM too often, I'm not up for this. This removes that option. So I think that actually is something that you should do. It's what I do. I DM, but I also play in a couple sessions. This also allows me to create characters and sort of figure out how I can work them into my narrative, not to make them part of the party, but an NPC that they can interact with and get a new experience out of. Also, a way to show them that they don't have to build characters in the very same way. They can do odd things like I do with my characters. It's about the party. Very simply put, you have to take the opportunity to use their backstories, stuff they write and that they put into creating their characters. This isn't just a bunch of numbers and words on a sheet. This is a person, essentially. That's how you have to take it. This is a person who I need to take seriously. Their thoughts, their emotions, how they feel. You need to be able to take that, digest it, and then provide them with what they're sort of looking for. Because they put this backstory and this depth of their character out there in order to receive something back. And if a player hasn't put like a lot of thought into their character or into their backstory, then that is something that you can sort of flex with them on. If they didn't put a lot of detail in their character because they're not good at it or they're not into roleplay, okay, add more to their character. Give their character a little bit of depth. Obviously, you want to talk to your player about it. Say, hey, is it okay if I do this? But that's something I recommend, 100%. Definitely give that a shot. Make sure that you make it about the party. That you make it about their experiences. That's something that in the most recent game I played, one character in particular I feel like he got a little more out of it role play wise. Another character got a lot of gear out of it. And then the third player didn't seem to get as much. She still had a good time, but I felt like I had did her a disservice. So I've been reworking events and reworking the way I think about her character in relation to the other ones, just so that way she gets some shine as well. That's super duper important to me. Now, another thing that we need to take into consideration is party composition. Party composition doesn't matter. You don't need a healer. You don't need a tank. You could just have straight DPS. Right? You could have a monk, barbarian, and a sorcerer. That could be a 3-party team. That's it. It's up to the DM. It's your job. The person who's watching this video, it's your job, essentially, to create a series of events that can respect these players and the choices that they make, but also confound them a bit. If it turns out they're having too hard of a time, they need a healer, throw an NPC in maybe, give them a couple more healing options in the world. Maybe they can go to a church, pay for healing, or maybe there are medics or hospitals within the world that they can interact with. This just gives them an opportunity to roleplay. Maybe even incorporate surgeries and the loss of limbs. That's a bit more complex, especially on the DM's part, because it's a lot more work for you, but at the end of the day, it pays off because your characters feel invested in the world, they feel invested in their experiences, and by making something that is sort of not tailored to them but fits the group, you're not forcing them to multi-class or to dip outside of what they feel like their character would do. You know, I shouldn't have to feel like, oh, I should dip into cleric so I can have some heals so the way we don't die. I don't want to do that. I want to play just monk. I just want to play this. I want to play a fighter. I want to be just a rogue. If I do feel like multi-classing, then I'm feeling multi-classing. But I shouldn't have to feel that way in order to fit what somebody else needs or what you're forcing me to do. Because that takes away from the player's overall experience. I don't think that's a good thing to do. Now, the final thing I believe I thought up is always preparing. How do you always prepare? It's by constantly working and then reworking what you're doing. Perfect example. I originally created an encounter for these players, the ones that most recently played. They came across these 3 homebrew monsters. 2 of the players bowed out, so it was 3 instead of the 5 I was expecting. One of them bowed out the same, and one of them was like, "Oh no, 2-3 hours before the game, I can't make it." And I was like, "Oh great!" So I had to rework things. And even then, the monsters were still just a little too tough. But I was like, you know what, this is going to be a good experience for them. If they die, they die. But at the very least, they'll really be able to put their skills to the test. And it was phenomenal, actually. So they came across these opponents, and originally I had made it so the way they could possibly turn one to their side. Now these are skeletal beings. They're Skull Knights, Skull Commander, and Skull Barbarian. They're just a homebrew thing I found on Tumblr, I think. And essentially, I was like, oh, maybe they can turn one of them to their side, and he can offer a bit of guidance. But I was like, no, you know what? I'm not going to work in that in because the chances of them thinking of that aren't very high, so I'm not worried about it. But that sat in the back of my mind. I was like, all right, if this is something that comes up, there's a way it works. Then we came into the encounter, and one of the players says, you know, I want to use message. I want to send a message to everything, to all 3 of these guys, and try and convince them to join our team, to try and convince them to stop fighting us. And I was like, fine, because I think that's cool. I was like, I respect it. I'll let that slide. Go ahead. Let's do it. And he said, oh, for real? And he's like, he's trying to think of what to say. And mind you, I have an app that I recommend everybody. It's the 5e Spellbook. So I can just look up message if I want, right? So message. You point your finger towards a creature within range and whisper a message. The target and only the target hears a message and can reply in a whisper that only you can hear. You cast this spell through solid objects, yada, yada, yada. So it's only for one person. But I was like, you know what? I'll let it slide for a bunch of other people. He persuaded them. He rolled for it. He did really bad. And I was like, you know what? I'll give you advantage. Go ahead. Because I thought it was a really cool idea. And it worked. He wound up convincing 2 of them. Mind you, the other one, this brand new player who had never played Dungeons and Dragons, never played role-playing games, never played a fight, it was not into games. She's just very, but she's more into fashion than anything else. She wanted to try Dungeons and Dragons. She goes, "Can I use polymorph on it?" And I go, "Oh, what?" And polymorph she's a warlock. She could use that once a day. And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." They have to pass a wisdom save, so pick which one. And she happened to pick the one with like the worst wisdom. And I said, "Oh, I rolled, fucking failed." And I was like, "What do you want to turn it into?" She goes, "An ant." And I was like, "This is glorious." So a brand new player got to polymorph another creature. She'd never done. She was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I can't believe I did that." And I was like, "Yeah, you did." And another player got to do something that he didn't think could be possible. It worked out that these guys wound up helping them, killed the final guy that they had to kill, who was stronger than both of them, got them the items that they needed, and then they were able to move on to the actual like final boss of the dungeon. But essentially, I had given myself an avenue where, by preparing and then changing things and preparing and changing it, just keeping things prepared, keeping things ready, having an understanding that anything can happen is something that a DM needs to do, because anything will happen. If you haven't thought of it, you still need to account for that. You can't just say, "No, that's not going to work." Have a player roll for it. The player says, "I want to fucking, I don't know, use this spell against this enemy." It's something as simple as that. And you're like, "Oh, I didn't know that they had that spell and they had it prepared. Oh, that would kill this enemy instantly. I don't want that to happen." You say, "Oh, that would kill this enemy instantly." They thought of that. Like, they didn't know that they were going to come to this enemy, but they saw it. They knew what they had on their character sheet, and they responded, rewarding that 100%. I think that's the perfect way to DM. And by always preparing, we're always trying to be prepared for things that you thought you would see coming, and even like taking the time out to think of how to help players with situations that they create themselves. That's a great DM. And if players don't appreciate that, or they don't have enough follow through, or what have you, then that's on the player. But you, as the DM, never stop preparing, because you can create some amazing circumstances, or you can make these things happen for these players. And I say that this isn't Wish Fulfillment Simulator. 100% like, not wish fulfillment. You will get whatever you want. But when it's something cool like that, I feel like you should let slide, because that is a story to tell. Well, that's going to be this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think. And whatever, like, comment, subscribe. I don't fucking know. Bye.